And if you're just joining us, let's introduce our panel for this hour. The Republican strategist Mica Mosbacher is with us, who is also on the Trump 2020 re-election committee. Thank you very much for coming in to join us, Mica. And we're also joined by Emily Maitlis from the BBC's Newsnight programme. Mica, since we are here, how is it looking to you so far?
Well, I'm cautiously optimistic about the House. However, history isn't with us. I mean, traditionally, we have lost one or both chambers in the House. And so if we do, it certainly would be reminiscent of what happened to Clinton as well as what happened to Obama.
It would be kind of what you would expect to happen at this stage in a presidency.
Exactly.
So what is making you cautiously optimistic, or are you just saying that because you feel you should say that? Because you're being a good, true Republican supporter.
Well, I would normally say that winning the majority, you know, and keeping it in the Congress would be as tough as putting socks on a rooster.
We like that phrase. You say that it is typical of what goes on in House races, and yes, it is. And we said earlier that 35 of the last 38 midterm elections have gone against the person that is in the White House. So traditionally, it doesn't go well for presidents. However, when you look at those economic numbers and the job records this week, another 250,000 jobs put on, shouldn't they be doing a lot better in the House?
Well, you know, and James Carville, who was a Democratic strategist, it's the economy stupid, famous line. And it's certainly a reason why Bush Sr. lost his second term in 1992, and it's a reason John McCain lost in 2008, because they had a recession going on during both those times. So here is Trump with this amazing jobs report number, over 250,000 in October, 3.7% unemployment, 4.0% to 4.2% growth. So what I think that this is that this is a referendum in this country on Donald Trump. Either you're for him and for his policies, or you're against him. So a little bit like Nancy Pelosi, I mean, Donald Trump is, to some degree, a polarizing factor.
I mean, it's kind of an indication, with unemployment at its lowest level since 1969, of the degree to which some people do not like Donald Trump, the fact that the Republicans are even struggling tonight. Let's bring you a few results that have come in. In the Senate, we have a hold for the Democrats. That is Bob Casey's held in Pennsylvania. We have a hold in Wisconsin. Tammy Baldwin, military veteran. We've had her on the programme, Christian. A hold in Wisconsin. Martin Heinrich as well in the Senate, another hold for the Democrats. You can see it there. And in Utah, a hold for the Republicans. No surprise there. Mitt Romney has taken the
who's
Republican...
had a dalliance with the Trump administration.
Yeah, and people are wondering whether he might challenge the president in 2020 if Donald Trump is not doing well. I would be surprised if Mitt Romney did that, but anyway, he has now got the Senate seat in Utah.
Just picking up what we're talking about with Mica about the economy being at the top of the, you know, what should have been at the top of the Republican agenda, given those amazing numbers that she's just set out.
Which to some extent is because people are voting on the economy at the moment.
Well, yes, although the exit polls today suggest that it's third in line in terms of important issues, which is surprising. Immigration just above it and health right at the top.
Because people don't vote if they're happy. So as soon as something's going well, you forget about it. If you haven't got a job, you're angry and you want the jobs back. If your job is there, if you're seeing your paychecks increases, then you forget about that. And if you're Donald Trump, you have to move immigration to the top. And if you're Republicans, you don't want to talk about immigration and you want to remind people this is all about health.
But he's fulfilled his promises on the economy. And when it comes to immigration, building the wall and getting immigration reform, he hasn't done anything.
Well, he started with prototypes. You know, you know, the problem.
I don't want to focus people on things that you haven't done. You want to focus them on what things you have done.
He separated children from their parents in cages at the border.
And that may have been a major mistake, because obviously that didn't play well with women in this country, and women are a very important block of the electorate. However, also, we're now debating in this country, are we a sovereign nation of laws, or are we open borders? Are we going to allow individuals to come in through asylum and take advantage of this catch and release loophole, or are we going to ask people to come in and wait in line and be admitted into this country on merit?
And this may be why Fox News is the one that is out front on this, but they are suggesting that the House may have gone to the Democrats. Let me just ask you one more thing about Texas while we're here. This is the kind of holy grail of Democratic politics. At one point, Hillary Clinton thought she was going to win Texas as well. They started putting money in there. They were polling down there. Every Democratic candidate, I suspect from now on, until the date when America becomes a minority white country in the middle of the 2040s, is going to think that they can take Texas, and they're going to start putting, the Democratic Party is just going to start putting more and more money into Texas. And at some point, Mica, Texas may well become purple and then blue, correct?
Well, it could. I mean, remember, traditionally, we were a Democratic state. Even our very popular governor, now Secretary, Rick Perry, was originally a Democrat.
But the kind of Democrat that it might become is not the kind of Democrat it was. It will be because Hispanics do start voting in large numbers and they start voting Democratic.
Right, we're more diversified. And it is also because of the wild card, the millennial population. And I think the whole Democratic Party is redefining itself. I mean, clearly, when you see Beto O'Rourke as the face of the Democratic Party, for example, and they don't really have anyone else, if you think about it. And he's exciting, and he's promising what in many older people's minds is socialism. You know,
but not in the mind of millennials. So this has been a big shift in America, particularly on the issue of healthcare.
I agree.
You used to say to Americans a couple of election cycles ago that a candidate was proposing the idea of universal healthcare for everybody, and they would have been slammed as a socialist. They would not have had a cat's chance of getting elected. And now, this midterm election, for the first time, really, we have several candidates who are proposing exactly that.
Well, and healthcare was a big topic.
There's an element to this, though, isn't there? Because Beto O'Rourke says it's not that we're not a Democrat state, we're a don't-vote state. And actually, the turnout in the early ballots and the postal ballots in Texas were bigger this time than the vote in Texas.
We can bring some good news to Mica, at least. CBS News is predicting that Ted Cruz has won Texas.
Oh, well, come and take it.
And Claire McCaskill and Heidi Heitkamp are interesting me because they've cast themselves as centrist. They don't necessarily follow the Democratic line. Is there a problem for these senior Democratic women that they are seen as too liberal, even though they're not, because they're women?
Well, I think it boils down to what happened with the Kavanaugh contentious hearings and also the Me Too movement. So what we saw on one side was that the Me Too movement didn't empower women, Democrats as well as Republicans, to finally speak up about sexual misconduct, especially in the workplace. But then, on the other hand, you saw Kavanaugh, where it appeared that an innocent man was smeared by a mere accusation without following due process of law.
Well, it appeared to half the country like that,
and it
didn't appear to the other half of the country like that.
So that has, in my opinion, galvanized women voters on both sides to get out and vote. Now, it is interesting because some women have absolutely distanced themselves from Trump, as have other candidates, depending on their districts. So that's where Trump has been helpful, but Trump has also been a hindrance, depending on where you are in the country.
Looking at the 2020 campaign, as you you have to do better on that, there as Republicans, don't you?
Well, I think so, and I think a real bellwether is going to be Arizona. Remember, Jeff Flake was a moderate. And he was a never-Trumper, and also John McCain was independent.
Now, Sinema is ahead there by 1 percentage point.
Yes, it's really close, and it's much closer than it should be, especially with it being a border state.
A third of the voters in Arizona are independents.
Which is also why...
I think it's shifting.
Republicans will be happy with Marsha Blackburn winning in Tennessee.
Absolutely.
Because she was a woman who was very close to Trump, had always been very close to Trump. That was an open seat. There was no incumbent advantage. She was running against somebody who was as popular as you could get as a Democrat in a conservative California. Thank you, Peter, for joining us. We should also have a quick chat about the governor's races because there have been some interesting governor's results have come in and they are looking more favourable at the moment for the Democrats than the Senate seems to be looking. Michigan, it looks there like the Democratic candidate for the governorship, Gretchen Whitmer, has won the state of Michigan for the governor's mansion. A reminder, of course, that these governorships are very important because they have a direct impact on 2020 and the presidential election campaign. And if the Democrats do well in these governors' houses, Mica, what does that mean?
Well, I think we have to look at a state-by-state analysis because in states like Texas, certainly the governor affects those individual candidates who are running for the House and the Senate, as well as down ballot. In other states, for example, the legislature is not necessarily that influential in national voting statistics. So I really am not as concerned about the governors at this point, because they won't affect policy in the United States.
Having a Republican governor in Wisconsin and having a Republican governor in Michigan surely helped Donald Trump in 2016.
Absolutely.
It can't have hurt him. So if Michigan has gone to the
fundraising.
Democratic side, that's going to help.
It will. It
on
could
the other
help.
side of the
Yeah,
ledger, right?
It should help. I mean, conventional wisdom, of course, should help.
By then it becomes impossible.
So it becomes impossible
numerically.
for the Democrats. I mean, we're talking about the governors and Trump loyalists through the night. Chris Kobach is the governor in, well, he was running for governor in Kansas, and a very close friend of course, of Donald Trump, one of his very big supporters, has lost. So Kansas has elected a Democratic governor, which is huge, in Laura Kelly.
Yeah, which is huge, and it'll be interesting to look at state by state how many people actually voted, you know, and how many, in comparison to 2016, did the Dems get out and vote, and clearly they have been invigorated, and possibly by the Trump factor. And one thing I wanted to bring up is Trump said yesterday, in a very rare moment of self-reflection, that he thought that maybe he should reconsider his tone. And maybe soften his tone. Now, I would argue very strongly, had he done that in 2016, he might not have won, because people were looking in the United States for someone who was a disruptor, who would go against the establishment.
But you know that the president is his own strategist. He's his own strategist. Exactly. He doesn't listen to counsel. He didn't listen to Paul Ryan at the weekend, who wanted him to talk about the economy. So that makes your job and your committee's job very difficult in 2020.
What are you going to say to the president, Mica, when you are on the committee for his re-election for 2020? What will your counsel be to him in terms of tone, given tonight's results?
I would probably recommend, although I doubt he changes, that he soften his tone a bit, especially when it comes to those issues that do affect women emotionally. And one has to do with, you know, the separation of children at the border. I think that really bothered a lot of Republican women as well. And so I think that he has I've seen his compassionate, empathetic side. I think that it would help if he shows it more.